Good morning. Thank you for having me. This is a very exciting thing, and you all are very gracious to have me here. Have you all ever heard of an End of Life Doula? Yes. Those of you who have not heard of an End of Life Doula, have you heard of a birthing doula? Yes. Okay. So an End of Life Doula is sort of 180 degrees away from the birth doula. So someone helps guide the mother who is laboring to bring in a new life, and an end-of-life doula is helping the person who's laboring to leave. It is not a medical service, so this is not hospice, and it doesn't compete with hospice, although they might not feel that way. Because it's non-medical, it really is person-centered. And it is to guide and support the person as they approach their own death. Some of the typical activities that we do as an end-of-life doula would be vigil planning, which is helping that individual think about how they want their final days to look. How do they want it to feel? Where do they want to be? Who do they want to be there? Who don't they want to be there? Hospice doesn't usually have a conversation of what do you want your bedside to look like when you are no longer possibly awake or verbal. So this is something we like to do before that happens so that we are well prepared to make the environment that you said you wanted and to advocate that you get what you want. So that is a huge piece. Then there is legacy planning, which is really kind of cool. And it is a project that gives some purpose towards end of life for the person who's getting ready to pass. And it is a place for them to express their creativity or their values or their ethics or whatever it is that they want to share for future generations or who they are leaving. It can be an art project, it can be letter writing, it could be music. It doesn't matter what it is. It is something that's very personal, and we try to help guide somebody into selecting what they feel would be meaningful for them, that speaks to them about their values and who they are as a person. And it's one of the pieces of what we do that I enjoy the most. I had a patient who was blind and deaf, and she had a great-grandchild that was coming to be, and the child was going to be born in California, and the lady lived here. She said, "No, I don't know why I would bother. I'm never going to meet this grandbaby." And I said, "Oh, but that's the beauty of this. Without ever meeting your great-granddaughter, you can leave a piece of who you are, specially written for her, so that she can take in when she's old enough to do that and do that over and over again." So the woman was a world traveler and a teacher, and she came across an old textbook of hers, and she wanted to put in an inscription in it to the grandbaby yet to be born. And I said, "Okay, well, you dictate and I'll write, and we'll come up with what you want to say." Well, it turned out that it was a 5-page letter, not just an inscription. So every week when I would go visit her, I'd read her what we had come up with so far, and then she would take it from there and dictate to me. And it did. It took us about 6 weeks or so to complete. And then when we were done, we put it in an envelope. And when she passed, it was given from her daughter to her granddaughter, who I think had the baby at that point. But it was very meaningful for her, and she was very excited to talk to her friends in Florida. When I'm working on this project. So it gave her some joy, and it gave her some purpose and meaning, which we all need towards the end of our lives. It ain't over till it's over. So that's Legacy Project, and it's just a highly personal venture, if we will. There is life review, which is an important part of what we do. And sometimes for me, it's the beginning. It's a very easy foray into end-of-life doula work for the client that I'm working with. Just tell me about yourself. What did you do? Where did you grow up? What was important to you? What were some challenges? Where did you go to school? What did you do for a living? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? What were important things that you learned along the way? Who was a mentor for you? What was your greatest life lesson? What was your biggest challenge? What was your greatest joy? And these are all very wonderful prompts to get somebody to tell their story. Ultimately, to me, it is about teasing out your mark on the world, your sense of I've been here, and to let people know that. I think we all want to know we made a difference and had a sense of impact on those we love and those around us, and an opportunity to tell people we love them. And the last and most, I think, significant piece of the doula work is actually sitting vigil. So that's where that plan we came up with in the beginning, what you wanted your space to be like, what you wanted your environment to be. That's where we want to make sure we create that so that you are as comfortable as possible. And then when we're sitting vigil, we're advocating. This is where it works beautifully with hospice, because sometimes there is a medical intervention that needs to happen and I can't do any of that. But I can do other things, hold hands, play music, light a candle, depending where they live and what's permitted. Just to create that space. And if there is a problem, if somebody has restless agitation or they're not comfortable, that I'm there to alert the medical staff to help them become more comfortable. And we just sit there. Some of the things that I have found in my work is that families maybe haven't experienced this at all because we've become so removed from having someone die in our presence. It has become a very clinical event instead of something that used to happen in the home. Does anybody in here know what a living room was for? Yes, ma'am. Tell me. Why is it called a living room?
I just remember that when I was younger, that's where they put the body before they buried it.
So what they did was they laid you out in the parlor, and the living room was where the living people hung out while everyone was waiting in the wake or whatever. So that's where we got the living room. But the parlor has gone away because we don't lay people out at home anymore. Doulas are more familiar with home funerals and are supportive to help people find other ways, other methods of burial or dealing with your bodily remains. What is it that you want to do? What are your other choices? And also to support their decisions if they don't want to be embalmed or they don't want to do things that don't feel comfortable or natural to them, to give them other options and help them pursue those. But again, there's an advocacy piece to make sure that we comfortably have the discussion so I understand what their wishes are, and then to help them enact those. And then at the end to just be there with them and hold space, which I love that I can say that in here and you know what I'm talking about. And that really is a huge part of it, is to bring a sense of peace, a sense of calm, a sense of space. A lot of time families come in and they're not ready. And they're upset, obviously, and they aren't ready to let go, perhaps, or they're so unfamiliar with what to do. And I find that I end up modeling behavior for people who are uncomfortable with their loved one dying in front of them. They don't know what to do. So I had a family member that came in from San Francisco, and we were at the bedside, and I was sitting very close to my client who was actively dying, and the daughter was fidgety and uncomfortable. And I said, "You're going to have to come sit closer." And she's like, "Well, why?" I said, "Because she can't see you. You're too far away." And just like with babies, they see best at about 18 inches. That's why you hold them close to you, because they can hear and smell and see you. Well, you kind of have to get it closer to that person. And I got news for you, death ain't catchy. You can be in the same room, breathing the same air, and you're not going to get you're not going to catch dying. So to be close, to demonstrate how to hold a hand palm against palm so that they can feel the pressure. It is very comforting to have that pressure palm to palm instead of, delicately touching somebody. And also, I don't know if you've been with people who were sitting vigil where they won't be quiet. They fill the space with words because they're so uncomfortable. Well, again, I want to model the behavior of this is a quiet space. It doesn't need to be filled with words that don't mean anything because you're uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, go get a cup of coffee or go away. And we'll sit here and just be here. And that's all you need to do. This is their experience. You are just going alongside with them. There are a lot of people who are getting into the end-of-life doula arena. Some of them are good at it, and some of them aren't, just like any other profession. One of the things we were taught is to not bring your own beliefs, but you need to know what your beliefs are so you don't bring them with you, because it is all about what the person in the bed wants. And what to say and what not to say, because people, when they're uncomfortable, they mean well, but they say some really dumb things. And sometimes it's things that people just don't want to hear. With that is helping the family with their grief. We're uncomfortable with what do you say to the grieving person. And sometimes saying, "Oh, they're in a better place now," is not the answer. And everybody's situation is different, and you just need to give them space to experience what they're experiencing and just to let them know it's okay. You're sorry that this happened and it sucks, but you're here. That's all you need to be. And when you say, "Do you need anything? I'll do anything," well, then now you gave them homework. Be specific. What do you need? And if you don't know now, is it okay if I ask you later what you may need then? And then if you can do it, do it. But to just, is there anything I can do for you? Yeah, you know what? Go away. I don't need another project. I came to this field in part because I've been an aging life care manager for 25 years. And I intrinsically wanted to help my patients as they were dying. And many of them did not have good family relationships, I'll just put it that way. Children who lived across the country, estranged family members, maybe they never had family. And I needed to step up and be that for them in that moment. And I just did it. And I kept thinking, this is really very powerful. And then I learned about End of Life Doula, which has now been around, maybe 10 years, as a named thing. It's really a very ancient practice from Greece or earlier, Egypt even, where the doula was a servant to the female head of household. And they helped do whatever it is that the female head of household needed to do. And because births and deaths happened in the home, it was women's work. Well, it's not women's work anymore, but a lot of women still are called to this. And it was just something that I was called to. And I don't use that expression lightly. So I've had clients that I think one of my favorite parts is giving someone their last meal. I like to cook. Not that I do the cooking for them, but there is something joyous to me about feeding people. And when I have the privilege of honoring what is their last meal, there is just something so meaningful, both to them and to me, but I observe why it's meaningful. I don't even ask them, I just watch. And it's an incredible experience. And I just want to support them and know that they have a safe place to just be themselves when it's time. And when I heard about, I was trained by the International End of Life Doula Association, which is known as INELDA. So when I heard about that, I decided to go and to be formally trained. And fortunately, I already knew a lot of it, which was great. And then I learned a few other things. But I also saw that there were a lot of people drawn to this work, but they're not really suited for it. I think they're filling a hole for themselves, and that's not what we're there for. So just be aware, you want someone experienced if you do have somebody that you decide you want to do this kind of work with. You want to make sure that they're there for you and not there for them. Do you guys have questions? Is there anything you want to know about? Yes, Marcia.
About what time frame do you normally spend with someone, like a week or a month or?
It can be whatever. If we do the entire thing, the life review, the vigil plan, a legacy work, and then actually sitting vigil, it could take months. So when they have a terminal diagnosis is an appropriate time to reach out to an end-of-life doula. But I have worked with people that didn't have that time. And a lot of people don't even get their hospice referral until 3 days. Now, that's really, you don't get the opportunity for good hospice work or doula work if you only have 3 days, because at that point, you're probably not very alert. But usually when people realize that they have a terminal diagnosis, it's a good time to start slowly incorporating this. And as it gets closer and they may qualify for hospice, it works well together because they're handling medications and monitoring health status, etc. And we're working on the personal journey. Yes, ma'am.
Do you get referrals from, does hospice let people know that there is such a thing as an end-of-life doula? Because I would think that many people aren't really aware of such a thing, and yet if they were aware, would be more likely to want to take advantage of it.
Yeah. So hospice is paid for by Medicare, and doulas are not. Some doulas donate their time, some have sliding scales, some charge, some don't. I have been speaking to hospice companies. I was certified in 2017. I think I've been presenting and speaking to hospice companies since that time, and I have yet to get a referral for one. However, I got a phone call this week from a director of nursing at a hospice in the Atlanta area who wants to have a meeting with me because now that end-of-life doulas are the hot new thing to talk about, they're trying to figure out how to incorporate that, which is exciting. So I may have to get back to you on how people do find one. The INELDA has a directory, so people sometimes, if they even know there's a directory, they can find me that way. You can certainly do Google searches for end-of-life doulas. It goes by other names, but that's the one I prefer. Death doula sounds just a little bit much to me, and death midwife is a little bit not my, they may be doing the same work, but it's just a marketing problem. I just don't think it's going to go over real well. But end of life makes sense. So there's, a Google search is a good way to try and find, is there a directory? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a question about the survivor. Do you stay around long enough to help the survivor get through the burial and that kind of process?
We can, if they would like.
Okay.
We can also make referrals to grief counseling, funeral homes, again, to help them find the resources, but we can absolutely stay to help them with their early bereavement.
Not so much to grief counseling, but I mean, like if someone's all alone and they know the funeral home to call and they know everything to do, but they need someone to back them up, maybe to help them.
Yep.
With that.
And we have resources depending on what their needs might be, that if it's something that I don't do, then I know how to tap into that to support them.
Okay.
I just wanted to know the time frame, or who informs you that this is the time the patient is closest to passing. Because otherwise you could be sitting there, for days or months.
Well, for sitting vigil?
No, for
Hiring a doula.
Yeah.
So again, if they have a terminal diagnosis, families are usually the ones who reach out, but sometimes people in their own pre-planning and they know this is something they want, they may research and tell their families, I want this, and they may have a parameter when they want to begin. A terminal diagnosis is a good time, and any time in between. I've had clients that have dementia, so our working time frame is much shorter because they can't participate in all of the activity we could do, so I will modify that. Again, that's where a skilled clinician versus a layperson who can sit vigil, it's two different things. But because it's a young profession, there's no distinction.
Okay. I just had one more part, if you don't mind. So you're not in contact with the doctor or the nurse, but it's basically the family that says, we need your services for this amount of time?
Yeah, the doctor doesn't make a referral.
Okay.
No, this is personal preference, and you can hire, there's no referral needed.
Okay.
Because Medicare doesn't pay for it. And as far as how do we know when somebody's getting close, when they are becoming imminent or actively dying, is generally a 3 to 4 day process, and there's physical changes in the body. If hospice is involved, they may work with the doula to inform of those changes in blood pressure, in tone of skin and muscle rigidity, breathing, secretions. I mean, there's body changes that happen, and it starts to be evident that it's time. But there's work to be done before that, and that's where the doula can be most effective in the pre-work. And sometimes there's behaviors, hallucinations, other things that people don't understand, and it's frightening, whereas this is very kind of spiritual work. And you approach the client where they are and normalize what the experience is. So if they're seeing an old family member who has passed away, it is not for me to say that they're hallucinating because their brain is dying, because actually I don't believe that. I believe they're approaching the veil and that they are having an experience we can't have yet. And it's okay. And what is distressing versus what is normal, because basically it's where this is my belief, we start to have a spiritual and physical war within ourselves when it's time to go. there's a battle between staying and going. And we have to separate, and it's not easy. Have any of you had children who went away to college? Or you dropped them off at daycare, and there was kind of a struggle, and they didn't want to go? And you said it's all going to be okay and I'll see you later. Well, it's not dissimilar from that. Not that I'm trying to diminish the importance, but our soul is trying to leave the house we've been keeping it in. And there's a power struggle to give that up because the survival instinct is very, very strong. That's how we stay alive. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And just again, holding space and normalizing the experience because we've been so far removed. It's nice to sort of be a guide or a Sherpa for people who are getting ready to go on this big journey. All right, I guess one last question, maybe two.
Actually, I wouldn't mind if you described holding space.
Okay. Holding space is being present to that person, their experience, without putting judgment on it or setting a directive. You are witnessing for them. And just having that availability is space that you keep for them because they may not have the strength to do it for themselves. Does that help? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering how many people you work with at a time. Is it one-on-one or do you go up to 3?
It's case by case, so that would be one at a time. And I don't do group work for something like this. It's very individual. But most of my practice has to do with medical care for aging people. That's what the care management part is. So the end-of-life doula is just this small piece that I bring to the end. I would like to take my care management practice to a consistent place where I can just focus on the doula work, but I'm letting it come as it will. But it's really a one-on-one experience. Thank you. All right, thank you all.
It's so important to talk about our end-of-life plans now while you still can. Sometimes you can get a terminal thing and it goes really quick.